Let's go through that gamut of emotions. Let's squeeze what is normally a days-long process of reading a book and just compact it into 70 minutes. And that sort of distillation and that concentrating version of it is just, yeah, great. My name is Julian Larnach. I am the writer of Past the Shallows. I read the book at the instruction of a great friend of mine. She said, "You will like this." I did not like it. I hated it. I finished the book. I finished it. I threw it across the room, Bradley Cooper styles. I was angry at it, and then I sort of came back to it a week later, picked it up gently, apologized to it, and I realized why I disliked the book so much was by the end of it, it had hurt me in a very specific way, and it had found its way under my skin. And I think when looking at an adaptation, there's a lot of different reasons you'd approach something like this, or why you want to bring something to not just a bigger audience, but engage in that relationship you do in theatre. And I think if I can make an audience hurt in the same way that that book hurt me, and the learnings and the sort of what that opened up for me emotionally, I think what a joy that would be. This is my first adaptation. Started in 2019 with the lovely director Ben Winspear and the lovely composer and muso Glenn Richards. We went to, of all places, the south coast of Tasmania, where the book is set. We were in a school camp for, I think we set out to be there for 4 days. I think we were there for 1.5 because it got really cold. But we did a lot of solid work. We built a backbone of the scenes from the book that we really loved, and found the character Miles, who's the central character, because he makes the most decisions of the characters in the book. That's therefore the most dramatic version of this, and we sort of centered the play around him. And yeah, just sort of making some really big choices early on which allow it to be theatrical. So we decided we'd have 3 actors, whatever that means. You know, when you start coming across scenes with 5 and 6 characters in it, instantly you've got that sort of transformation that is only kind of really works in theatre. So I think those sort of big theatrical decisions early on allow you to hopefully get to the most theatrical version at the end. The thing about young people is they are incredibly adept at story. Like, I think they get narrative more instinctively, and they understand what the beginning of a story is, so they're sort of going, yeah. They know that when a story kicks into gear. So rather than having that yeah moment, because that's, you know, there's nothing worse than a quiet bunch of school kids watching a show, because they're the most honest and brutally honest audience. So we decided to just cut the first 67 pages, and it jumps right into the heart of the story. You're in the middle of, I think, a shark attack on a boat, but I don't want to say that. But yeah, so jump right to the heart of the story, and then, you know, have an audience figure it out with you and sort of recreate that mystery which is in part of the book. We started the stage adaptation in 2019. You know, we didn't have a theatre in mind, we didn't have a goal in mind, but we thought we had something. And during COVID, we managed to do that awful word pivot, and we turned it into a radio play, and we turned it into an experimental film, which weirdly feels like the best way to reach the theatrical imagining of it, because now, you know, you come out of COVID and you're hungry to be back in a theatre, you're hungry to breathe the same air as a story. And I think now that we've had these different iterations which, you know, rely on the strength of just audio, or rely on the sort of visual stuff you can convey in film, now reaching the theatrical version, we kind of just have that left. Like, we go, actually, what's the bare bones, what is the stripped back human version of this story? And I think that's what we've reached with this. I've worked very closely with director Ben Winspear on this, and it's really just about when you love something and you share that love of that thing with someone else, you're almost approaching it as a fan. And I think that's the best way to approach an adaptation, is you're kind of going, you're gently, and you're kind of going, oh, I don't want to hurt it. But then I think something clicks and you realize that actually this book will continue to exist. We need to create something that can sit side by side with it. It can illuminate it. It can break it apart in a different way. And I think once we realized our responsibility was to bringing our take to this and our response to this, it really allowed us to sort of take it apart from the inside out and realize that actually yeah, we've got all the things we need. We've got a story that works. We've got characters that we love, and let's just have fun with it. And let's find a way to make an audience laugh and scare them and make them cry. I love making audiences cry. You feel like God. But I think there's something around just going, yeah, let's go through that gamut of emotions. Let's squeeze what is normally a days-long process of reading a book and just compact it into 70 minutes. And that sort of distillation and that concentrating version of it is just, yeah, great. Favel, the writer of the book, has such a brilliant quality to her writing. It's sort of, I read a review once where I was comparing it to Hemingway and the idea that, it's a iceberg moving along and you just see the top bit of it. So it's really sparse writing that hints at this sort of underworld to the thing it's exploring, which is really great because it is about young people and it's exploring young characters, and that's sort of your motion through the world for the first couple of years, is going, actually, I can just see what I want to see on the top of this. I don't know why people are acting like this or why I have to do this. That's, the journey of a lifetime to find out. But actually this sparsity of writing really works on stage, and I think that sort of infusion of subtext and that, I guess, grappling with a whole world, but only through the viewpoint of one person. I think hopefully we've captured that through the stage adaptation. I think there's something special about what happens when you're an audience in theatre, and I think it's different to reading a book by yourself, obviously. Maybe if you're in a busload of people and everyone's reading the exact same book, you might get close to it. But I think when you make a pact as an audience to come into a theatre, you turn off your phone, maybe put it on vibrate, you agree to look straight ahead, you're quiet initially, and I think it's that sort of pact which makes an audience connect. They're an organism, they're an ecosystem, they're working together to figure out this story and what it means by putting it in front of you. And I think there's something incredibly powerful behind that. There's a capacity for change behind that, because you're actually making an audience feel something collectively, and then going, actually, as soon as you end that, if you can end on this bit, then there's the capacity to change an audience and how they exit into the world and go, actually, maybe there's a different way. Maybe this story didn't have to happen. Maybe if, the conversations in a foyer, which I think are the best things on earth, is just going, actually, if this bit was different, the story would have ended there and it would have been fine. If this bit was different, the story would have gone on a completely different track. So I think it's that sort of piecing together that you do as a theatrical audience. And, it's fun that there are book fans coming to this as well. Like, it's just sort of like, theatre's for everyone. Why not open it up? All adaptations are different. I think the idea that this is not a canonical text, like this isn't, one of the great books of blah, 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 all that stuff. But I think it's an Australian, I would call it an Australian classic, but not in the terms of going, it's an Australian classic, but actually going, this is an incredible Australian book. And it's about young people, but it's about, I guess, them as people, not them as children, not them as students. It's really just grappling with this sort of universal concept, which is youthhood, and it's going, actually, how do we get under the skin of that? And it's not to say that other plays haven't done it or other adaptations haven't done it, but I think Ben and I are really, and the actors are really trusting an audience. We're just going, actually, you'll get this. Let's just move it along at a constant pace. Let's just throw stuff at you and just go, you're smarter. You're better. You're the best audience in the world, and you'll get this so quickly. And I think that's great, because a lot of adaptations I've seen are sort of a bit hand-holdy. And, you're fine. You're at the theatre. You don't need your handheld. That's weird. It's dark. That's odd. The actors are amazing. This idea that there are 3 actors tackling, there's about, I lost count of how many characters, but they're sort of, they're doing narration, they're acting, they're in dreams, they're in realistic scenes, they're sort of moving all the way through it. We've sort of talked about it as in, like, this is the storm in King Lear. It's just the storm. Stay in that maelstrom of this. And I think seeing these 3 young actors really tackle something giant like a book and really just going hell for leather. I think that's the most exciting thing. Why not just grab an audience, by the collar and just sort of throw them backwards through a story? And I think I'm really excited to see that along with everything else. Past the Shallows is playing at the Rebel Theatre from the 12th of October to the 9th of November.